After a 6 months journey to get to him and 3 weeks of pounding my head against this dragon, it's finally dead.
Fighting harder. Push it farther. Cut, punch, it's the ultimate. That's all. There is no meaning, what matters is just this fight.
Pidgey hunts. Welcome, gamers. Let me tell you a story of my struggle against the Black Dragon and how this was the hardest gaming challenge I have ever done in my life so far. Outside of a few, nope, it's definitely the hardest one. I spent 10 hours fighting this dragon nonstop, just grinding against this dragon, and that doesn't even count grinding to prepare for the dragon, which is another 8 hours. Just fighting the dragon itself, 10 hours. If you add in grinding, it's somewhere like 20 hours of preparation for this thing. So this is by far the hardest thing I have had to do in any game, and especially in Monster Hunter. So this is the final journal before I begin the Fatalis arc, because I expect we need a specific arc for Fatalis, because after just the first Black Dragon, all the trouble he gave me, I think Fatalis deserves his own journal series, because it's probably going to be more than one or two. So let's take it from the start, right? Black Dragons were a thing I always knew would be incredibly difficult, and just to get a flavor of what the difficulty of a Black Dragon is, when I completed the story of Monster Hunter World Iceborne, I went to go see what Alatreon looked like, and I think I was a Master Rank 24 at that point, and that match lasted a whole 2 to 3 minutes, if I recall, and I got destroyed. I made a journal about how I felt that the difference in skill and power, like for me to get there, I couldn't even see land. It was a sea to get to Alatreon. So that was my very first impression of this Black Dragon. From there, I started grinding. Along the way, we met a raging Brachydios, which was a whole thing. We met the monkey, the stupid monkey, who has also scarred me, but prepared me. And we got more gear, we got more skill, we learned how to use the Switch Axe better. And at one point, after I've killed pretty much most of the endgame monsters, tempered monsters aside, so we got the Silver Rathalos and the Golden Rathian out, I was at about Master Rank 70 something, and I was feeling good. Ever since the monkey got killed, the super monkey got killed, I was like, everything was kind of falling into step, and I was like, how much better have I gotten? And can I actually take on this Alatreon? And for the most part, everyone said, no, you can't, you suck, don't even try it, you're not even Master Rank 100, you fool, you don't even have augments. And then there was a small minority which were like, no, you got a good axe and you got like health augments. Go for it. You can do it. Let's see you cheering you on. So in my first week one attempt, I went in to see, so I actually went out and learned what was needed for Alatreon, which meant learning the mechanics of toppling Alatreon, breaking the horns, the whole cycling, and his whole supernova judgment attack. So I understood what now I needed to do in the fight to understand if I actually stood a chance against this thing. So week one, I go in and I'm just learning the patterns. So we're studying it, learning how to dodge. Okay, you gotta roll this way. All right, he does this, he does fire, he does water, he does everything. Went in with some blight resistance, so I couldn't get all these, like the multicolor of blights on myself. And for the most part, I was actually learning pretty well on how to dodge him. But the ultimate question remained of, am I good enough and is my gear good enough to actually invoke the topple? Because if I can't get a topple, that means I'm not doing enough elemental damage to actually like warrant winning this fight. So after about 1 or 2 hours of fighting Alatreon back to back, I succeeded in getting my first topple, and that was the moment where I went, I should be able to kill this dragon. That was the moment where I'm like, I do not need to grind theoretically. The problem now is with the player skill, which is something that I can power through by just practicing and getting better. To reinforce that point, I created a challenge for the community, and I said, use my gear and let's see if you guys can be Alatreon. And a lot of people did. we did a video, a compilation, and I think there was 20, 30 people who did it, some with less effort than others. So I'm like, okay, that reaffirms everything. It's me. I'm the problem. The gear is good. We should be all set to take on Alatreon. So I went into week 2 with a newfound confidence of I knew what the moves were like. I knew that I had the right gear on. Now it was just let's close the skill gap. And then after that first week, like there was so much progress made where I was actually surviving and I was actually learning. It felt great. So I went into week 2. And week 2, I was sure I was going to win, and it still didn't happen. I was getting tossed around. I was losing. And if I have to define week 2 in this Alatreon journey of 3 weeks, it was pure frustration. I was actually getting very angry and frustrated with myself, and I was very much doubting myself. So this entire Monster Hunter journey, I've never really been about optimizing. I've just been playing and trying to figure it out. Like if you watch my early gameplay when I started this thing, I didn't know what I was doing. I was rolling, I was hacking and slashing with whatever I could, but I got by. And it's through that attitude and that trial and error that I got by through the past 50 plus monsters that I've slayed. Has it been glamorous? Not at all. Do I know what I'm doing? Not at all. But I was slaying the monsters. I was having fun, which is very important. And I was progressing. And so by week 2, I was so uncertain about if I could kill the black dragon, and the fact that I knew my gear was good and was all on me. I was a lot more receptive as a streamer to the feedback where people were criticizing how I was playing. This is something I only realized in hindsight, because for the rest of the journey, I just kind of went along with it, and I would take the chat or the community's feedback here and there, but to the most part, I kind of like played around with it myself, took some feedback. Oh, this doesn't work. Oh, this does work. And through like a weird amalgamation of all that, I would power through. With Alatreon, I really like lost all my confidence in myself, and I completely relied on what chat was telling me, which was a mistake, because at this point, everything I had learned, I was questioning. I was like, well, maybe I don't know how to use this. Maybe like my method isn't good. Maybe I have to rethink. And I was trying to play in a way that was new to me. So for example, I started this game, I would only play Switch Axe in Axe mode, for example. And there is a certain meta, and a lot of people joke that you never use Axe mode because all of your DPS comes from sword mode. And to an extent, that's true. The sword does more damage. And I eventually in Endgame learned in Iceborne, learned how to use the sword a little bit more. But now when you're saying don't use axe in Alatreon, in my mind, I'm like, I am losing because I'm morphing to my axe. And what that was causing now was that in my sword mode, I would constantly be stuck in the manual reload, which wasn't as much as an issue before because I was doing the switching to axe and sword naturally. I was recharging my gauge without ever, honestly, in the last 100 plus hours, I never really looked at my gauge because it just worked. But now in Alatreon, I was finding myself always manually reloading, which left me open to attacks. And I have people that are telling me, use sword mode, and almost belittling me because I'm using axe mode. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. You have to go in axe mode to recharge. Like I learned how to recharge my gauge properly. I'm like, you have to sheath your weapon or go into axe mode. So there was this frustration of my skill wasn't good enough, and I couldn't interpret the feedback from chat. And when you're frustrated, you interpret feedback maybe more negatively than usual. So all of that just led to week 2 being kind of really like soul crushing of I couldn't get this dragon down. And so off we went. I went grinding for a good 8 hours. I'm like, I'm going to try to get some new armor. A lot of people said, try the Safi set. So I tried to grind the Safi set. After 10 hours, I was not successful in grinding out the Safi set. I was not successful in grinding out the Silver Rathalos set. And the only set I did manage to grind out was the Golden Rathian one, which Gaijin Hunter recommended to me for Divine Blessing, which ultimately just makes you a little bit less squishy, which in this case, that's fine because I was getting hit a lot and I was dying, and that's the problem, as well as I wasn't doing enough damage. So enter week 3. At this point, I had reflected on the fact that I had lost confidence in myself, and I was like, no more. I'm going to play the way I always played. And it also helped that I saw other people who took my challenge. They were playing in what some would consider sloppy, where they were using sword mode and axe mode. And I was like, what? They're using it and they have my gear. And that's when I realized my playstyle is not that bad, that I could actually overcome this challenge without being awesome. And so I went in with a newfound appreciation for just believing in myself, as cheesy as that sounds. And I've also come out of, I was ending my Rise pledge. And in Monster Hunter Rise, I did a lot of off-screen grinding to kind of close the master rank or the hunter rank gap there. And through that grinding, I really learned to kind of tighten my switch axe gameplay to the point where I could get into a fight and like swing my switch axe so comfortably. I really wish I could have carried that over in World. And I realized I was not as comfortable in World as I was in Rise with my switch axe. So I did a little bit of off-screen grinding for 4 hours while I was trying to get the Golden Rathian armor. And I found a little bit more of a balance of how I like to play that was a little bit more refined, so I could get in Alatreon, do what I needed to do, and get out in a little bit more comfortable fashion. So all of that combined finally brought me into this fight on week 3, and the Golden Rathian armor was there. But on one, I'm like, I'm just going to try again with my base armor that I've been wearing the last 3 weeks and that everyone else did. Because if I would have put on the Golden Rathian armor with Divine Blessing and won that way, it would have been a valid win, but I would have felt like it would have invalidated all my other efforts that I was doing. So for a good 1 or 2 hour, I did it. I had one good run. The adrenaline was running high. I was sweating like crazy, and I lost, and I was like, ugh, I can't believe I'm still losing. Like, you know, the tension is building, and there's only so much like adrenaline rushes you can get. Like after that rush that on week 3 that I got that I didn't kill him, I realized, and this is actually kind of gross, we're gonna get into some biology. I realized this game is giving me adrenaline rushes, and I realized after the adrenaline rush, you get all sweaty and it's gross and your body's like shaky, your heart rate's all weird, and this is gross. You get smelly. Like, I used to go to esports tournaments, and like the fighting games and the Smash community, you know, they have a reputation. People joke, oh, people don't shower. I think I started reflecting on that. I was like, is it that they don't shower, or is it that the competitive nature of this place makes everybody have adrenaline rushes and now they smell? And it has nothing to do with shower. It has a thing to do with the byproduct of your body reacting to the adrenaline. So now like I'm all like, maybe the Smash community does shower. They are very clean people. It's probably a combination of both, honestly. Some people shower, some people don't shower, and some people just probably get smelly from adrenaline rushes. So Monster Hunter has helped me discover a new thing about myself, which is not very flattering, but I thought I would share that with all of you because, hey, it's the internet, why not? So gamer sweat aside, I was a little bit at the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm getting like in my streams, my personal stamina decreases. So I know if like 2 hours in I have not killed the dragon, my chances just keep getting slimmer and slimmer. So we took a little break. We went off and we watched some YouTube videos, if I recall correctly. And then we came back. I was like, all right, let's do one more. And at this point, I'm not looking at chat anymore. As of week 2, I don't look at chat during fights anymore. I'm just focused. I'm in the zone. I got to kill this dragon. And this thing was going on for like 30 minutes. And at this point, like, I'm still slaying him. I had increased the research level of Alatreon where people were telling me I should see the skull when he's weak. So I'm fighting. It's 30 minutes now. I'm drained. We're still like going. I feel like I'm playing good, but like I've carded a few times. His horns are broken. Like we're running out of options here. This dragon needs to die. I can't keep going through these judgments anymore. And there's no skull appearing. And I'm really at the point where I'm starting to question myself of, if I die, I don't want to do this again. Like I do not have another one in me tonight to like do another massive round against this dragon. And like, that's the desperation creeping in. Like, I can't lose. But like, this is going on. I'm probably going to lose and I can't fail. That's going to be week 3. And like all of this doubt was coming. And then a voice in me was like, stop it. Stop doubting. Focus. Just kill this thing. Focus. I'm like, how is the skull not going? Like I'm playing so well and I don't feel like I'm getting closer to the goal. And while all of this is going on in my head, finally, I just one hit out of nowhere. And then like the victory music and he dies. And I'm just blown away and shocked out because the skull didn't show up. All this going on in my head, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's finally happened. And all of that emotional thing, just the dam of emotions of 3+ weeks of all of this stuff just broke through. I'm like, I can't believe it's over. I can't believe it's over. So that is my Alatreon rush in a nutshell. And from this, I did want to share a bit of a message. And I'm hesitant to call it toxicity because I don't think the people who watch my streams are necessarily toxic, but my Alatreon experience and my fight probably introduced me to what I interpreted as the most toxic energy that I felt, because nowhere in my playthrough has anyone criticized my playstyle as much as on Alatreon. And maybe I was just taking it more personally. But we are in endgame, and I understand that like the margin of error gets smaller and smaller as you get to endgame. So my own expectation myself is I need to be more and more like, oh. And the comments that were starting to creep up in the Alatreon fight, especially like after week 2, of people either like just criticizing me of like, you got to play this way, you got to do it this way. It really, it was starting to take away from my experience, because that with a combination of my confidence in my playstyle was no longer there. And honestly, it was the first time I had to shut it out and say, I'm going to play this game the way I want to. Like if I was not on stream right now, I wouldn't have all this input. I would probably not be playing optimally with max minning my gear and all that. I would just be trying until I got it. So I actually had to consciously push that away. And that was unfortunately the most negative experience I've had in this thing. And if that is the most negative I'm ever going to have, like that is a blessing, because it could get so much worse than that. But I just had to share that, like, you know, just be aware of that. If you are ever offering advice on stream, just always kind of be aware that if you're saying you need to play like this, that's not usually very helpful advice, and it can come across as toxic. So it's better to maybe just give pointers and tips and let other people play the way that they seem to play most naturally. So with Alatreon out of the way, I finally said, it's time to go see our friend Fatalis. Let's see what this is all about. I've heard that the gap between Alatreon and Fatalis is massive. And so my first impression of Fatalis is already like, this thing is going to be terrifying. I also was not expecting to actually kill Alatreon before Master Rank 100, so we're in a bit of a weird spot where I actually have quite a bit of content to finish before I go back and take on Fatalis properly, because I think I'm at Master Rank 84 now. But Fatalis, we went in, I got my lore, I got my cutscenes, I got to see him in action, and he's not as fast as Alatreon, first of all, as a first impression, so I'm like, oh? I can move around and I can observe him. And there's a few times like he stuck his head on the ramp, I don't know how to call that. And I was like, that's an opening. I can boop his head. And I was like booping his head. And then like, of course he like had this massive flame attack that I had to dodge. But I was like, oh, there's a lot of mechanics. He's moving slow. I'm like, I think with enough time and practice and learning, I can overcome this. It wasn't the same impression as Alatreon where I got just wiped out of the floor. I went to Fatalis. I was like, I see an opening there. I see an opening there. We just got to start connecting things. So I'm already, I don't know. I lasted 8 minutes against Fatalis, and honestly, that is a lot longer than I was expecting. So my initial impression of Fatalis is not that there's an ocean, just I need to practice and learn. But before I do all of that, I need to finish all the content of Monster Hunter World Iceborne, because I really do see Fatalis as my personal final boss. So I want to clear out all the other monsters. I want to get to Master Rank 100. I want to get all my augments. I want to wear the best armor that I can get and prepare myself properly. And then we're going to start the Fatalis grind. So grinding to Master Rank 100 is the next goal. Finishing up my cantina, all my ingredient hunting, getting my treasures, hunting the last few monsters, which are mostly tempered and arc-tempered monsters at Master Rank 100. That's what's ahead of me. And then we are going to start studying and grinding Fatalis to finally close the book on this amazing Monster Hunter World adventure that I've been on for so many months now. So that's where we're at, and thank you everyone so much for joining, for supporting, for being there when I actually killed Alatreon. That was such an amazing moment. I'll see you on the next journal, which could be a while because we're in grind mode now. So until I kill some more tempered monsters, that's the next time I'll do a journal. And otherwise, I'll see you either on the next journal, the next stream, Monster Hunter Stories stream or journal, or even maybe the Dark Souls journey, which I will be starting soon. Until next time, keep it classy.
Let them lament my name. I'm grateful that I got to meet